Good morning. We'll call Friday, May 28th, 2021 meeting of the Redistricting Committee to order. Start with roll call, please.
Mr. Hess?
Present.
Mr. Payton?
Present.
Mr. Seroy? Ms. Weber? Present. Ms. Parker? Present. Ms. Polk?
Present.
Mr. Featherly?
Present.
Mr. Hunter? Mr. Collins?
Present.
We have a quorum.
I have one request here for public comment. I hit 8, right?
Yes.
This is for Mr. Ciascio.
Hello.
Mr. Ciascio?
Yes, this is Gary.
Yes, you're on for public comment for the county board.
Okay. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Gary Ciascio. I am a lifelong resident of Kankakee County, and I reside in the 4th Ward of the city of Kankakee. I submitted a map that was rejected by this committee at the last meeting. Let me make clear, I do not have an issue with the rejection, and I certainly understand the reason for it. I thought it was important to have a map submitted by the public, and it turns out that I was the only person from the public who submitted a map. I also want to thank the GIS department for taking my specific changes to the county board districts and drawing the map to present to the board, since the software to create these maps were not available to the public. I just want to take a little time to correct some misconceptions and give a little history about redistricting in our county. I was involved in opposing the map that changed the board from 7 4-person districts to 28 single districts. A lawsuit was argued by the late Chuck groups that it violated the Voting Rights Act, but we were not successful. Later on, County Board member Robert Snipes asked for the state's Attorney General for an opinion on whether the board could legally make the change. Her opinion was that they could not, and the change should have gone to the voters. However, she stated it was too late at that point to stop the implementation. As to current proposals, I would point out that the full census data is not available. Due to the Trump administration's handling of the census, maps are based on population estimates. Therefore, there is no way to know if proposed maps meet the legal requirements of roughly equal-sized districts. The current map and proposed maps are clearly gerrymandered to favor the Republican Party. There is nothing illegal about that. It is just strange that the state Republicans are complaining all over the place about this practice, and it is done here by our own county board. I support this statement by noting that both President Biden and Governor Pritzker received 40% of the vote in Kankakee County, and yet only 25% of the county board districts have Democratic majorities, 7 out of the 28. I would like to thank the committee for allowing me to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other public comment at this time? Any other public comment? Take a motion to approve the minutes from May 24th, 2021 by Ms. Parker, second by Mr. Featherling. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All on Zoom say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
You're on mute. No.
You're on mute, Jake.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going back to the elimination of or adoption of proposed maps. We'll go through these maps again, one by one, and then we'll have discussion afterwards. Mr. Wheeler? Help him out, Dell.
All right. This is map A. We do have the big board here in the room, but I'll show the public here.
We're not up. Share.
It's Where's the plug into the screen?
Game will show.
Oh, I thought there was a switch up there. Okay,
There we go.
thank you. So yeah, this is the version A. It has subtle changes. I will click on the current county board. Excuse me. Just the pointer on this. It's off. Hidden. There it is. Just a second. There are subtle changes. I will click on the current county board boundaries. You'll see some changes over here. It was basically an attempt to tighten up some of the more gerrymandered areas, if you will, to borrow a phrase. You know, these odd shapes that were in there is a it was just a first attempt, very slight, if you will. So if there's no questions with that, I'll go ahead and just, you know, it's basically what we have with a few little cleanups. And there's more that could have been done, so it was more like a good, better, best approach with the first series of maps. Yes, I can go back to that. Yes.
Mr. Hunter, do you have a question?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, and Andy, could you just generalize the modifications, no matter how minute they may be?
Sure, there was mostly down along Maple Street because there were some dips back into the neighborhoods in District 18, 17, 15.
Okay, so are you saying that you going up Maple as the dividing line, or what?
Yes, the current before it, you could see the line here. If you can see it on the screen where the mouse is, that's the current line. It came into the neighborhoods a little bit, and so I just this one here was using Maple Street as a divider,
Okay.
a natural boundary. Instead of dipping in here, move this over a little bit, move that over a little bit. So it, and also it, I believe out here. Yeah, out here in this area, there it is. A few census tracts out in this area to more balance the numbers. So very slight modifications, more just a solid boundary. Actually, this little strange area in District 5 that was in, I believe, which District 3?
3.
Yeah, so this area right here, they were did protrusions that didn't necessarily make a lot of sense. Just squaring those off to natural boundaries as well. So, and from there I thought, well, there's more work that can be done, so let's just leave that alone and let's present another, continue on that path was the thought process. Well, let's continue compacting these districts based on natural boundaries. Get here. So this was just a continuation of that. I'll click on the current board districts and you see like you still have that situation, but instead of this boundary and this boundary, I used River Street going straight across because it was somewhat cutting through these areas. If you see how this cuts through neighborhoods and things like that, it was more, okay, let's square this off into that natural boundary and then also do some of that as well in this area here. So we had Court Street, see 17 Court Street is the natural boundary instead of cutting back through neighborhoods like this.
They're having trouble hearing you. I know you gotta look at your...
Sure, let me move the computer over in front of the
There you
microphone,
go.
that might help. And so you see some of the way the boundaries were, and it's pretty self-explanatory there. So it was to get through some of the neighborhood twists and turns that you saw on the map. Again, a continuation of what existed. So if there's no questions about this, it's pretty self-explanatory. I'll move on to C. C was, again, just a furtherance of what we were doing there and applying it to other areas to compact. So it left those pretty much alone the way they were. We addressed 23, because if you remember, I'll show you the current district lines. This was another area where it kind of jogged through neighborhoods in this area. Still left all of that alone, but also looked at this district on compacting this 22 and 25 as well. with natural straight line boundaries and got rid of this little niche, if you will. And by the way, each and every one of these balances on population.
Correct.
You know, that's how you could have a county that could vote 40% in one particular presidential election, but those populations could be concentrated in certain parts of the town. Okay, so it has nothing to do with gerrymandering to get an outcome on the county board, because you can't make up where people live. It's population.
And I believe at the last meeting, when you clicked over one street, we saw what the deviation was going to be.
Right.
It added
Right.
a lot to one and took away from the other districts.
And it could be like, if you see where the mouse is out here in the white area to the left, there could be like 3 houses out there in that big block of area. But if you go in town, there could be an apartment building on that block. You just don't know until you know. So this wasn't just like, you know, drawing a map on a piece of paper and you know, there were no consulting with voters or anything like that. It was, where do people live? That's what this is based on. So if there's no questions about this one, I'll move on to the next one. And by the way, we can come back and do this if you want to dive into something about a particular map. I'm on to D. Yep. So D was just the same thing, you know, building on what I've already talked about. But then I said, well, we've got 3 county board members in Moments. What would it look like if there was just 1 county board member over the Moments
Actually,
area?
4.
Or 4, actually. Yeah, you're right, with Sam on the southern part.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't mean to sell you short there. Apologize. So it was it was the same thing we were talking about, but okay, how do I get it so there's not so many county board representatives? And it wasn't an attempt to divide Moments. It was because each of these districts needed population. When you have that anchor of Sun River Terrace and Hawkins Park, it dictates how the rest of the stuff around it goes. And so when you have a majority minority district that you must pay attention to, then you have to kind of build off of that. And it speaks to why Moments might have been divided up in the past. It was to grab that population. Well, there was another way to look at it. And so I did that, and it forced 5 to, which was already a rural district, to become fully rural and go all the way up to the Will County line, because again, that one has to have population balance with all the others. So if there was any questions about this one, I could try to answer them. But
Then you go back on this map, if you go back and you look at 15, and then,
that's right.
then we were jumping out.
I forgot about that, and I apologize. On this map, it was another way to represent 15 and 13. This used to be 13 over here and 14. It was just a different way to map that area based on the river being a natural boundary there, and River Street, if you will. You know, so you see nice straight lines where before, not so much. See what I'm talking about? So this is about compacting and straightening, which is one of the mandates of this committee.
Correct.
So, any questions about this one here? Okay. So I'll go down to E, the final one. And this one is just the other way to represent Moments, with really 2.5. I would like to say, like Mr. Payton's district that he currently occupies would still have a small portion of southern Moments, but this is just another way to basically have 2 reps over that area, that the town, and then it extends, you know, 5 would stay the same, obviously, to the last one we have. To me, it was a more compact version of the last idea, if you will, with the least amount of disruption as possible. So with that, I guess you can ask me any questions or debate or talk or comment or
What? Questions and comments? Mr. Hunter.
Yeah, guys, come on, I don't want to ask all these questions, but Commissioner Payton, looking at E, is that a better fit for you in terms of not having so much of Moments?
Yeah, and not only that,
Use your microphone, please. Thank you.
correct? And not only that, I think moments would be better represented because in the 6 years that I had this report, I probably never received no more than 2 or 3 calls from moments. And I think this would bring it together where they could be better represented.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Zoom? There, I can see them now.
And
Mr. Hunter?
yeah, just to follow up, Mr. Chairman, Chairman Wheeler, regarding maps, and I would tend to concur with Mr. Payton regarding his comments, and I'm going to support his opinion, as he knows this better than all of us, I would think. Mr. Chairman Wheeler, in terms of C, you had some discussion about that, and could you just encapsulate just a brief overview of C again, because it appeared from the head nods of people here, they tended to agree with map C.
The major difference is the way that District 5 and 2 and 1 and 4 interrelate. That's the major difference between C and E. There's a few other minor ones, but that's the majority of the differences. It's, I guess you could say it's a different way to approach Moments area. 5 still keeps part of Moments, and then, or excuse me, in 28C, and in 28E, 5 goes all the way to the border of Will County.
Correct.
And it leaves Moments to basically 2 people to cover that area.
Right.
Okay.
And once again, just as a reminder, we have federal voting rights that we have to take in consideration. So basically, the map is always started down in District 4, and it's moved out from there. So if we make changes on the east side of the county, then it shifts everything over to the west side. So. Mr. Featherman.
Mr. Chairman, we had agreed the other day, we had talked about going to the full board with 2 maps in a preference. Is that right?
I don't know if we agreed to it. It
Well,
was
I mean,
a discussion. Right.
We discussed it,
right.
we didn't vote on it or anything.
Correct.
Mr. Rowe had suggested that we go with 2.
No, he suggested we go for all, but, and then he limited, no. But, yeah, I'm a firm believer if we give him the decision, 2 would be an opportune number to come up with. I mean, we've been over the maps, we've made decisions. I personally don't think A is feasible, and I personally don't think B is feasible. Or not feasible, they are feasible, but the way they're still cut up a little bit. When you get down to C, D, and E, they're much more precise and everything. So.
Well, you want me to go up there and take those down? Or we gotta?
No, no, we're still, we're in discussion.
I agree.
We're in discussion, so.
B is chopped up, you know, A is chopped up. I like E's nice and smooth lines, everything lines up with boundaries in it. You know, when you look at the charts with the population and the people, you know, all the voters in this area and everything, it's like tenths either way on C.
If you go over this sheet here with the numbers,
Yes.
they're all very compatible, C, D, and E, so.
Well,
but it's a privilege, Mr. Hunter.
Yeah, therefore, and I concur with the chairman's comments. Additionally, the comments that Chairman Wheeler provided, this is a Bible here. You know, 'cause this is empirical evidence here, and that's what you look at when you take a look at what the chairman just indicated, the Voting Rights Act. And that's what you got to comply with. And you've heard Corporation Counsel indicate that as well too. I'm of the opinion that of course there's still a possibility that there could be amendments in terms of what we refer to the full board. I'm of the opinion, and I concur with the comments that have been made of the chairman and the co-chairman and the comments that Chairman Wheeler has indicated. And again, I come back to this. This is like heaven sent, which helps us. Therefore, Mr. Chairman, I would move to eliminate and dismiss maps A, B, and D, and move forward maps C and E. Again, my motion is to dismiss A, B, and D, and move forward for consideration to the full board. Maps C as in cat, E as in eat.
I'd like to second that motion.
C and E.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to dismiss maps A, B, and D by Mr. Hunter, second by Mr. Featherling. Discussion, comments? Anybody on Zoom? Oh,
Collins?
Mr. Collins.
I think that I support Mr. Hunter's decision there, and I think that going forward with 5 maps would be a disservice to the full board when there's clearly a feeling in the room, so to speak, that people are leaning towards the lower maps, the D and the E's, and I think we can eliminate a few of these safely without hurting anybody's feelings, and I think a vote will show that.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Polk, did you have a comment? You're on mute. Pat, did you have a comment?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I was wanting to know which one would be, if all of a sudden we get the census at the last minute, which one would be the easiest to clean up and make it right?
I'll defer to Mr. Wheeler and Mr. Skimmerhorn.
It's tough to say because we all have opinions on where population has changed. If you look at where housing permits were, you'll see change in the Mantino area. You'll see change in northern Bourbonnais, change in the Hopkins Park area, increases, but that doesn't count renters who have moved. So it's, the state law says, unlike the state house and the state senate and even the congressional seats, we are mandated to use the last census. They can use other things. We can only use the last census. So any way around it, if they change the law and say now you can redo your maps based on the census in September, which I don't see happening, but if they do, it'll be work on any side of it. It's it's nice we have a technological tool to help, but I think either C or E, they're similar enough that would allow us to move the lines. But there would be disruption. I just can't say where. It's a total guess because no information really tells you where the renters went. You know, you don't know from town to town, you know.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
Mr. Featherling.
I know I made I seconded the motion and stuff, but is there any housing starts now that are up, Del, or any note of any housing starts in Hopkins Park or Mantino? I mean, you have no idea about the permits unless it's in the unincorporated areas, right? Because we really don't have a lot of lots around.
No, we actually, we periodically get the housing starts for the municipalities as well.
Okay.
So,
where is that the highest in the Mantino Hopkins Park area?
as Mr. Wheeler indicated, the data we have shows that those areas there have had new houses in the last 10 years.
And in the Mantino area, I know we're running low on lots, but it would take a year to get any more put in, or 2 to get any more lots put in. They seem to be developing like 10 lots at a time. Nobody's coming in and making huge subdivisions anymore where it's going to knock it way out of whack, where somebody's building, 150 homes out on, Career Center or something like that. That's not happening. I don't see it happening. I've been on planning in the area for years. I don't see anything going much until the interchange, or until that interchange gets taken care of, and who knows when that'll be. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, we have the motion on the floor to dismiss A, B, and D. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hess?
Aye.
Mr. Payton?
Aye.
Ms. Weber? Aye. Ms. Parker? Aye. Ms. Polk?
Aye.
Mr. Feather?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Hunter?
Aye.
Mr. Collins?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. Do we have anything else to come before the committee? Anything else to come before the committee?
I'd like to
One
state
second.
the next meeting, you know, make sure we state
Yeah.
that clearly.
I don't believe we'll need another
Right.
meeting. I
just
think
wanna
we
make
can
sure.
bring this right straight to the board now, so.
Okay.
Okay.
We have time on Tuesday's agenda for the board meeting's agenda to spend some time on this, or we got a tight agenda, Andy, do you know?
Oh, we'll take all the time we need on
Okay.
this.
Well, no, I didn't know if you had.
We have to have this done by that meeting.
So this would be our project for that meeting in particular.
Yeah, there's a couple other things, but
Yeah.
yeah, but that for sure, this is we have an executive session that we have to get into, but this is a
and
primary
bolts,
focus for
okay.
the board. You only get one time to do this every 10 years.
Yeah.
That's that time.
And those,
Mr. Hunter,
okay, Andy, now, there's
microphone, please.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. There are no ancillary issues, nothing, minutia?
You know, actually, let me show you something here. Actually, before we go, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Dell to clean these up to make sure there's no little like islands out in the middle of somewhere that need to be cleaned up, like it didn't get clicked on, or you know, something that doesn't change the map, but it's just. And here's an example, and this is after me talking to Dan Hendrickson, and I'm glad. Is this E? Well, it doesn't matter. I'll still show you. And I'm talking about this area over by River Lane. When I click on the township line, okay, this little space over here would cause, there's a couple of houses there, would cause Dan to have to print like 5 ballots for that one precinct out there, okay? So what we would do is we're gonna go through and correct a couple of these. This one is correct up here, because that would go to I believe, the housing authority. Is that voting place over there? So that's not that big of a deal.
Would you
Okay,
move up
so-
and use the microphone, Dan, please?
Yeah. While he's coming, I'll explain it. So they would go to City Life in that area, but there's a lot of houses over there. So he's making a full print run, so it's not that big of a deal. But down here, what we're gonna do is we have to. Let me do it like this, and I'll show the committee. So if I was going to add those into District 5, I would click on this, and just to get this little part into District 5, and watch the numbers, they won't change. Well, they did change, just those couple, but I mean, not dramatically. You see what I mean? It put just those couple of houses.
0.54 or something like that, wasn't it?
Correct, but we've lined up the township line.
And
So-
you've actually brought more balance to it by doing that.
Yeah. But into there, but it would be the other way.
Well, you decreased from 18 and you added to 5, so.
So it's not just, we're not just hanging a couple things out there. So we're gonna go around and kind of clean up the edges a little bit like that, where they cross, and Dan will be part of that process to make sure that we don't cause him a bunch of extra work on the precinct side of things for no reason. But that's just an example. That's not tried and true, but just let me get back out of that.
Mr. Hunter?
Yeah, I thought I was still at the floor, but no problem. The chairman was clarifying things. What I'm concerned about, that's why I posed the question to Mr. Wheeler and to you, Mr. Chair. With all due respect, now, we're going to go ahead with a full board a week from next Tuesday.
Correct.
And unless these guys who are not on Zoom have been keeping up with this, I don't want to have to go through a 3 or 4 hour meeting regarding the stuff that we've been able to do, and I think we've done a really good job in terms of expediting this process with the assistance of planner as well as other individuals who are, had some input into this particular document. You know, again, this empirical stuff really helps out. I'm not sure if they have this in their hands, although it's available. I'm not sure if the rest of our colleagues have been able to review this stuff and keep up with the discussion that all of you guys have presented in terms of questions and the feedback we've gotten. All I'm saying is that I hope we don't have to do a laborious task of starting back at point A in order to get to point Z, like this committee has done. So that's all I'm saying. I'm just hoping there could be some kind of comprehensive, concentrated presentation by the board chair and also Mr. Rowe, who has given us advice in terms of this process. So, in other words, let's provide the necessary information and not get into extraneous stuff that's not even germane, so that the balance of our colleagues can expedite and vote on this thing, and as the chairman has requested, and the law has requested.
I would think that when you and Mr. Hendrickson go through this, if we do run into problems, we still have a tentative date of June 4th, which would be that Friday before. If we have anything that, you know, would be totally out of line, you'll bring it back to this committee before, if we have to. I mean,
We could meet the day before if we had to, as long as it was on both agendas, that Monday before the full board. What I was suggesting is we're looking at the borders and the lines, and they all look good. Correct. But once in a while, you'll see like a little splotch out here that wasn't assigned to a district. It could be a creek, you know, but we're gonna go through and make sure that everything is absolutely perfect. And that's with Dell's assistance, making sure that we're on the right sides of streets and things like that. It won't change the numbers per se,
right.
You know, over that allotment, but we just want a little bit of time to clean up, because we could have done that for 5 different maps and spent weeks doing that. Now we know what your intention is. We'll focus on those 2 and just not changing it, but just making sure there's no outliers. Yeah, just cleaning it up if there is anything.
Yeah,
Mr. Hunter.
Yeah, thank you. I like that, and you've heard the comments from our county clerk as well too. Possibly, Mr. Chairman, let me say this to you. In order to expedite this matter at the full county board meeting that Tuesday, how about, and just a suggestion, a committee of the whole, in terms of the little minutia, the items that you said in terms of cleaning up. That way, everybody hears the same thing, and all we have to do Tuesday is, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I guess by definition, the full board is a committee of the whole, so they'll be able to do it all together at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, so that we could sit there and you know, go through the presentation and say, you know, we did find a couple of precincts that we moved by and identify them, just like in the one we were speaking of with Ms. Parker. If Dan feels that that's an issue where we're printing 2 ballots for one precinct that it should be in the other township, save the taxpayers money, save people where do I go vote, that kind of stuff, then we'll just mention that.
So I'm not real clear on that. So you're saying not to meet on that Monday, or what are you saying?
We don't think it's necessary as this.
But you just intimated that.
He asked me.
I asked if we needed to.
Okay.
If the numbers start to go off, if we would have to meet as a committee again.
Yeah, I don't see that happening, because what we're talking about, I wish I knew offhand, but we've got to really go through it with a fine-tooth comb and make sure that, like when you click on a census block, sometimes there's it makes no sense. They're not square. Sometimes they drift through neighborhoods, these census blocks. And so you have to choose it, and Dell knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I don't.
You know,
quickly show you if you'd like.
Yeah, if you want, yeah.
Let's take a look at census block 115. Take a look at that.
115?
Yeah, take a look at that.
I don't know if we can call it out by that. We click
I
on
know
it.
him now. You know, that's
Show you real quickly.
Oh, that's one.
that's not square.
You need to go back to share your screen or whatever.
Let's share the screen. Let's just pull up C for now. Okay, tool, redistricting. Plan integrity, you can go through and find unassigned areas. In this one, there are no unassigned areas. A lot of times there's little sliver census blocks that'll have 0 population, but because it's jammed between a road and a creek, it's its own census block. When you're sitting there clicking on these, you don't necessarily find them unless you're zooming way in. This software lets you, it'll do a scan and do that. This one here was not a good example because it doesn't have any. Other things you can do, you can look for find non-continuous areas. Okay, here's one. Let's click on that one. It'll highlight it for us.
Yeah.
It didn't find anything. Those are some of the tools that we can use. Oh, that's unassigned areas that we to clean up the map. Now, this is not going to find those areas that Mr. Wheeler talked about where there's just a sliver over a township or something. If it is assigned to a district, those you have to actually visually look for.
That's what I was referring to with Dan. We'll take a re-look at that once again.
Go ahead, Mr. Engie.
I've taken the liberty of printing off all sets of the district maps for all 5 of the maps, and the only spot that I have seen is that one that you had just shown on the screen a little bit earlier, that small section of Aroma Township that was in a county board district on its own. If that's addressed, I don't see anything, and I would defer to Delbert to see if he sees anything that would be an outlier, but I don't see anything else that would cause any consternation on my end.
Great.
Yep. It was just to let the committee know that this is the last step before the final maps are presented. Just to make sure we're not approving a map that has a glitch or a problem.
Correct.
That's all I was trying to get
Very
to
good.
for everybody.
Great.
No, another set of eyes never hurts again, so.
Do you have a comment, Ms. Parker?
Oh.
No.
I would have shaken.
Oh, okay.
I would shake my head agreeing with Dan.
All right, then this will go right directly to the board then in June. Is there anything else to come before the committee? Mr. Featherling.
I have 2 things here. I'd like to thank our planning department, Delbert and Daniel downstairs. They've provided us with maps and we can got questions answered. You can click here and click there and make things happen. I know a lot of work went into this, so I'd like to thank them and on the up and up for Daniel and the GIS department. Good, job well done down there. So, and then my other motion would be to adjourn.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
Polk.
Ms. Polk. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.